this is something, I'm glad you bring this up. I don't know whether this is going to dovetail properly, but I always surprise people that I talk about followership, because we always talk about leadership, and I think we have a terrible relationship to it, which is that leadership is like, yeah, I'm kicking back, I'm in the corner office, I got this thing. And in fact, I think that's nothing to do with leadership. I think that leadership involves followership, and that people who hate the idea of following other people can't lead themselves. And so when you find that people have a fun, like they'll smirk, oh, you're interested in followership. The greatest gift I can give many people is saying, I'll take direction from you. And you know, it's very weird. People think that they want to be in the top spot. As soon as they have responsibility for somebody's sort of following their directions, they're not sure that they love it.
Yeah, well, just to dovetail into that, people are generally surprised when I build up, and I'll be talking about build up the most powerful leadership, one of the most powerful leadership tools that they have in their entire inventory of leadership tools that they can utilize and they can exploit, and they can take advantage of this tool at the right time, and it's going to do wonders for them, is to listen to people.
Right.
Like, just be quiet as a leader and just listen to what people are saying. And if they have a good idea, support their idea.
Well, you know, it's a sort of a weird thing to bring up, because it's not as intense as what you do. But when I work with an assistant, one of the first things I do is to teach that person to tell me when I'm over a line. Like, because if that person doesn't have the comfort with saying, hey, you know, you're calling me on a Sunday and this is not an appropriate reason to call me on a Sunday, you're out of line, then I don't feel great. Because if I'm in a leadership role with that person, then I don't know if they're doing these things because they want to be doing. Another thing is always like, can I get you coffee? That I want to make sure that somebody understands that if we're forming hierarchies, it's not for the pleasure of working out, love we didn't get as a child. It's because we actually have to accomplish something, and trying to take the sting out of it without taking, in some sense, the necessity of forming hierarchies, because I think that most people don't have an idea that if people below you don't want to follow you, there are a million ways to sandbag you.
Oh yeah, they'll sabotage you. They'll sabotage you. I say this all the time. It's like if I'm in charge of you and I say, okay, Eric, here's what's going on. Here's the mission. Here's the vehicles I want you to take. Here's the people I want you to take. Here's the weapons I want you to use. Here's the method I want you to use. Here's the route I want you to take to the target. Here's the route I want you to take home. And here's what time we're going to debrief. You take that plan and take ownership of it and go execute it. And even a really great guy, in the back of their mind, they're thinking, well, I would do this a little bit different. That's not the best way to execute that. And so when you go out to execute the mission and you hit an obstacle,
right?
You instead of trying to overcome the obstacle, you just call up and say, hey, we couldn't accomplish the mission. Sorry, we're coming home. You didn't think of this. Your plan wasn't quite what you thought it was. So what I should do as a leader is and say, hey, Eric, here's the mission we want to get accomplished. Go get with your team, figure out how you want to do it. And
or here's some things that I'm thinking about. Do you see any problems?
Yeah, I would say, well,
it depends.
Well, here's what it depends on. If you and I work together already, you already know what those things are. You already know me well enough to I've already educated, I've already trained you. So you already, I don't even have to say those things like, hey, I'm thinking this, that. You already know that. So I just say, hey, come up with a plan. You already know the parameters to work within. Yeah. So you come up with your own plan. You actually, if you're a good leader, you go with your team and you say, hey guys, here's the mission. How do you all think we should do it? And now we have a plan that your team came up with, you came up with. And now there's no talk of how do I get you to buy into my plan?
Right.
It's your plan. You're already bought in. So is your whole team. When you bring it back to me and you say, hey, Jocko, here's the plan. Now I look at the plan and I say, hey, okay, that looks pretty good. And maybe there's a little nudge I give you. Maybe there's a little course correction I give you, but it's still your plan. And now you go and execute the plan. When you hit an obstacle now out in the field, you go over it, you go around it, or you go through that obstacle because you have ownership of the plan. So no doubt about it. That's that leadership thing of, I actually say, people always talk about leading from the front and that you got to lead from the front, and you certainly do. But there's many times where I want to lead from the rear a little bit. I want to lead from the back.
That can be a little bit. This Israeli theory of follow me, where you put the highest value person in harm's way first, and it doesn't make sense initially, but then you realize, okay, well, if he's willing to go over the side first, then maybe I'm going to take direction from him because he's putting it all on the line.
Yeah, and there are limitations to that plan as well.
Sure.
Because if you're the most experienced guy and you have the most tactical knowledge and you have a full understanding and you're going to be able to make the best decisions in the shortest amount of time that's going to keep everyone alive, and you decide you're the one that's going to go first and you get shot in the first 3 seconds,
That's
guess what? It wasn't a good
didn't
plan.
work.
And even though I'm following you,
Yeah.
I'm following you into a bloodbath. So what I would rather have you do, and this happened all the time with me, if I was approaching a building and I happened to be one of the first 3 guys on the entry team, I would take 1 step to the side, and my guys knew exactly that they.
No, but it was predicated on the idea that everyone knew that you were making a decision for a strategic or tactical reason. But in order to have that known, you have to do something that demonstrates that you're not doing it for a personal reason.
Yes, and there are times, there are absolutely times where no one's going to move until they see you move.
Yeah.
And so you've got to, again, this is the dichotomy. You can't lead from the front all the time. You can't lead from the rear all the time. Sometimes you got to be up front. Sometimes you got to be in the rear. Sometimes you got to be in the middle. You got to be able to modulate that appropriately for whatever situation you're in.